Good morning. Welcome into the Martin Houston Show, powered by MaXSports. It is a beautiful Monday morning. We're live, local, and ready to get things rolling. Want to invite you to get in on the conversation at 2:05. Nope. No 2:05 today. That's right, because we're the only show on Tide 100.9 that's live and local on this Labor Day. Happy Labor Day to all of you. Thank you for getting up and Adam with us this morning. We got a great show lined up for you. Of course, we're going to be breaking down things from uh, Alabama's big 56-7 win. So I want to invite you to get in on the conversation. You can always chat us up on the live stream. We'll be broadcasting on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You can find us at the Martin Houston 35 and Martin Houston fan page 35 on Facebook, as well as Max Sports. And you can find us on Twitter and YouTube at Martin Houston 35 at Martin Houston 35. So I want to invite you to come on, get in on it right here on your home for Alabama sports. It is the Martin Houston Show, the sound of Bama sports, and we got a great lineup for today. We'll be, of course, catching up with Kennington Smith here in just a moment. He'll be joining us to break down Alabama while we're waiting on him. Alabama had a big win over Middle Tennessee State. We have, of course, a preview of the big TNT Tide in Texas, or Bama and Texas 2.0. Jalen Muro makes his debut. He is ready to get things rolling as he makes history in his first start. We'll talk about what that is and what that means. So we'll be breaking him down. And then, of course, we can talk about college football's biggest stories of the weekend. Of course, it's prime time making his way to the forefront on the college front. So we're so glad that you have chosen to join us. Now we'll be doing things a little different. I do not have a producer this morning, so I'm having to host and produce this morning. So, but we'll try to get some audio from Coach Nick Saban here in just a moment as we move throughout the program. And so come on, get in on it. Like I said, normally I would open up the phone lines, but don't have phones today. So if you call 205-342-9904, there's no one there to answer. But you can always add your thoughts, your comments, your questions, your players of the game, all of those things. You can do that by joining us via chat. Of course, we will announce our winner from the score prediction contest. Someone nailed it right on the money as Alabama won the big game 56-7. Did Jalen Miro do enough to answer the critics, or did the naysayers do what they normally do? Well, that was just Middle Tennessee. That was just Middle Tennessee. That was just Middle Tennessee State. Or did he do enough to satisfy you this morning and have an opportunity to go out with your full support on this Saturday? Well, we do what we do like we do each and every day. This is a day that the Lord has made, so let's rejoice and be glad in it. Take some time today to notice someone, love someone, serve someone, be the difference you want to see in the world today. As I said, great show lined up. So we'll bring Xavier into the conversation here, and then we'll add Kennington Smith here in a moment. Good morning, X. How you doing, sir?
Good morning. Doing well. How are you?
Well, Alabama got the big victory over Middle Tennessee State. Jalen Miro seemed to have answered a lot of questions, and so we'll break down that and what he meant and see what's the good, the bad, the ugly, what's the question marks we have left from the weekend. Did we answer any questions from that were lingering? Did we leave any questions on the table? So did Texas in their matchup with you look at it, did Texas in their matchup with Rice, did that cause you any fear or concern? Did Alabama close the gap on people's thoughts? Georgia has a big win, but struggled early uh, against a much lesser opponent. So, uh, does Alabama move up over Ohio State, who got a 23-7 win? So a lot to talk about, not just in Alabama's win, but the rest of college football as a whole. So we'll do some of that in just a moment, but I'll let you have what's your takeaways.
Yeah, my overall takeaways were just good team ball, of course. Offensive line looked good. Was really impressed with how Jalen Milroe carried himself and performed throughout the course of the game. Got to see a lot of guys make a lot of plays. Wide receivers, running backs, tight ends. Defensively, guys flying around to the ball. You saw it early and you saw it often. Saw a couple guys out there that was a little surprised to see, but there are some injuries, and those guys got in and got to take advantage of opportunities due to that. Just a great effort all the way around, really, when you look at it. I mean, 56-7, yes, it was Middle Tennessee State, but there were questions about the way this offense would look and how they'd be able to move the ball, and I'm extremely impressed overall with the way that they did.
Yeah, lots of things to get to. We'll have all week to talk about this team and what they mean. I mean, what this game means. It was everything that Alabama, I think, needed. There was one area that I'm walking away a little bit uh not disappointed in. I don't know that we ever really had to have it, but you know, I think we were never forced to have to lean on it. So I'm not sure how good it is. And I'm talking about the running game, the run blocking. Um, at times, I want to see more out of that, and we will have to have more of that going against this team. So if you have good, bad, and ugly, and you're out there tuned in on the live stream world, please put your good, bad, and ugly in, and we'll work that into the conversation. The good, bad, and ugly from Curtis Moore II. Good, Jalen Milroe's performance. Bad, Earl Little Jr. getting picked on for the touchdown, the only touchdown. Ugly. Oh my goodness, Darren Dalcourt's play. Please put T. Ferguson in for the Texas game. I guarantee you, Texas will exploit the weakness of Darren Dalcourt. Uh, and so, X, what are your thoughts on his good, bad, and ugly?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Jalen's performance. I mean, first start, a record-setting performance. You can't get much better than that. Earl Little Jr. got picked on a little bit. I also think that was a little bit of a pick play down, but they didn't call it, so it is what it is. And Dalcourt is the weak link, and I feel like that's what we thought coming in, that he would potentially be the weak link on the offensive line. There's going to have to be some decision. I think Berg could be a guy that you see based off of the performance, but we also know sometimes by default, Coach Saban holds on to the older.
Yep, and loyalty matters, and I think now with the portal, even more than anything, that may be the case. There was a couple of things, and like I said, we got all week to talk about this. What was your biggest shocker of the game? And you may not have had time to think about this, but it was a big shock for me. It wasn't. I'm sorry. It wasn't a big
The
shock
biggest
for me
shocker.
because I had heard about it. I had I had heard about it before. I had seen it happening before, and I think we found out why he transferred. You want me to tell you what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Biggest shocker, Ty Buckner as the number 2 guy. Let me let y'all in on something. Then we're gonna get the break. I ain't even gonna let y'all respond. I'm gonna just leave you like the old Curtis Moore II can handle can relate to this, like the old hanging Chad down in Florida a few years ago. I'm gonna just leave it hanging on right there, where it's not quite pulled off, but you know they intended to do something. Nick Saban brought Ty Buckner to Tuscaloosa because he knew who his first team quarterback was. And I believe he knew that when he named that first team quarterback, that he was not just looking at this year, he was looking at this year's backup and next year's backup. With the naming of our quarterback, I think that instantly put Ty Simpson on transfer portal alert. And why would you put a guy who you feel strongly is not going to beat out the guy that you have and is going to not be better than, Lonergan is chasing him down. You know that the Saiyan kid is coming in. I'm telling you, that was Nick Saban once again may prove to be the genius of the group again. We'll talk about it more right here on the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by MaXSports. Coming back from the other side, we'll keep the conversation going right here. Stay tuned. We'll add Kennington Smith of The Athletic on Tide 100.9. Hey, it's a live stream only show today. Thanks for being part of the show.
37 now for Jalen Milroe. Pressure coming again. Milroe goes to the out route. That's caught for a first down by Bond. And the Alabama drive stays alive. A little extra at the end from Bond.
Want to see out of Jalen Milroe. Love the footwork. 3 steps, 1 hitch. The ball comes out on time.
And on 2nd and 6, they'll do it again behind a huge offensive line and a hole made to the outside by McClellan, who finally gets wrestled out after a pickup of 20 by Trey Fluellen.
Multiple tight end sets. Watch these tight ends. 12 personnel here, blocking up, getting a body on a linebacker. Kendrick Law also coming across with a great block.
Fresh set of downs again for Alabama. Bad snap. Milroe scoops it up. And he's trying to make something out of nothing. They'll ad-lib for the quarterback in his second start, and he is in! Touchdown, Alabama!
This is Sadie. She's on Verizon, and she's got the new My Plan, so she gets exactly what she wants and only pays for what she needs. She picks her perks and saves on every one. Make your move to My Plan. Act now and get it for $25 when you bring your phones. It's your Verizon.
Probably the best athlete on the field. Takes a ground ball and says, you know what? I'm going to call my own number here and just run around everybody.
Last quarterback I saw do things like that going into that end zone. They made a Netflix documentary out of him.
And Kool-Aid McKinstry on to receive this one. Not a good one. It takes a middle hop, and McKinstry gets it off that short hop. And he's got the sideline and into Middle Tennessee territory.
Higher than it actually was for those big boys. It's the opposite.
All right. Welcome back into the Martin Houston Show. Got a little highlight going there from the game. Great show from Jalen Milroe. We're going to be adding Kennington Smith here, but we're going to add a little audio, let Kennington respond to this. See if we can get Coach Nick Saban here.
Real positive for us.
Go to Matt right here.
Field blitz, which
I'm sorry,
we're supposed to
sorry
check
about
out.
That. Started off a little long. We're going to get Saban responding to Jalen Milroe, but let's go ahead and bring in Kennington Smith III. Good morning, Kennington. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Doing well, sir. Well, I guess I'll just give it to you and let you give me your overall of the game on Saturday. Alabama with the big win, 56-7.
Yeah, I think, it all kind of starts with the quarterback position, right? And how Jalen Milroe performed in, the season debut. And I thought there were obviously moments where he flashed his athleticism, but I think a lot of growth and maturity were on display as well. I think, that first touchdown was an example of kind of like his growth from last season to now. I mean, ball skirts right past him. He picks it up and he doesn't panic at all. He has two hands on the ball, keeping it secure. He actually looks at the pass first, doesn't find anybody downfield, takes off, runs with it, kind of turns a potential disaster into a positive play. And, that touchdown pass to Isaiah Barn, I think, is another example as well, where he just kind of hangs in the pocket, gets hit as he throws, delivers a strike for a touchdown. So I saw elements of growth. There were obviously some things that he needs to work on as well. I think there are a few of those that he would like to have back. And, Saban reference, I think it might have been the second play of the game where Middle Tennessee sends a blitz and he doesn't check out of it, kind of puts J.C. Latham in a tough spot, and that turns into a negative play. So, there were some highlights. Obviously, there's some things that he needs to work on. But by all accounts, I mean, you really couldn't ask for a better debut. He went out and did exactly what Saban was hoping the starter quarterback would do. He played well enough that Tyler Buckner had an opportunity to play as a number two, and then he leads a touchdown drive, and then they put Ty Simpson in for some reps as well. So all three quarterbacks played as Saban had hoped, and it was all because Milroe was able to lead an efficient offense, I believe, to 6 of 8 scoring drives. So they moved the ball well, moved the ball efficiently. And I think he staked his claim in the quarterback battle. And, I think the most important step, obviously, is to come this Saturday when they play Texas.
Yeah, let's hear what Coach Nick Saban had to say in his post-game interview regarding Jalen Milroe.
Their team plays hard and their team plays with toughness. So I think we certainly matched that. And I think that was something that was a real positive for us.
What went into Jalen Milroe getting the start tonight, and what do you think how he played?
I think Jalen did a good job. I think he's had a good fall camp. I thought he played well in both scrimmages. I think he's more confident, doing a good job in the passing game. His athleticism helps him. We scored a touchdown on a fumbled snap, which wasn't his fault. The center ball slipped out of his hand and rolled back, picks it up and runs it for a touchdown. He's a threat to, pull the ball in his own plays, which he scored a touchdown on that. So, and I thought he threw the ball effectively. So I thought he played well. There was one play early in the game where they run Sonic Field Blitz, which, we were supposed to check out of the play. We didn't get it checked. So there's always things like that you could do a little bit better. But I think that experience is basically an accumulation of things that you learn from the mistakes that you make. That's what experience is. And I think as he continues to develop and gain experience, he's going to play better and better. But I thought he played well tonight.
That's Coach Nick Saban, and he kind of confirmed some of the things you had stated, Kennington. And, that blitz he's talking about, I also think, he later on he talks about, we'll talk about the O-line play here in a moment, but he references, I think it's that same play. But overall, if you're a coach, Kennington, do you want your quarterback to have a perfect game in game one, or do you want to have something for him to work on?
Yeah, I think, obviously perfection is the goal, but I don't think there's anything wrong with being able to kind of bring him back down a little bit after a 5 touchdown debut, just kind of to put things on film to let him know, like, hey, like, yeah, you had 5 touchdowns, but, we could have, opened up this play in our playbook, or like, negative plays on early downs. Like, yeah, you had 5 touchdowns, but we had negative plays on early downs that put us in a compromising situation on third down. I think there's always little nuances and things that you can work on. But and Milroe admitted it himself. He kind of went up to the podium and talked about how he needs to get better and he needs to improve. And I think you kind of look back at the Texas A&M game. I don't have the direct quotes in front of me, but after that game, when Milroe spoke, it was really just so happy to kind of win the game, despite the fact that he turned the ball over a few times and it was a hard fought game. And then he comes out and has a near flawless debut after the quarterback competition, and all he kind of talked about was how he needs to get better. So seems like he's on the same page with Saban and wanting to improve. And I think he understands that, 5 touchdowns against Middle Tennessee State builds momentum, but turnovers against Texas could just as easily halt that momentum. So he needs to continue to progress, and he needs to continue to play well and take care of the ball, because the competition is going to uptick significantly this Saturday, and they're going to need Milroe to be sharp once again to win the game.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a special day when you get a victory. It's a special day when you're a guy who I think his moxie, his attitude, his character, Kennington, to me, came through loud and clear. Here's a young man. It finally came out that at the end of the season that he went into Coach Saban's office and told him, "I'm not going anywhere." Because that's been the question is, would Jalen Milroe transfer with the way he was kind of treated some after the Texas A&M game? How for the only time I remember Saban really being hard on a guy. And me and some people were talking, Kennington, is Jalen one of those guys that you have to be hard on? Because despite all of this, you still don't hear Saban saying Jalen is my starter. You don't hear him using his name. You hear him saying he. It's almost like he treats him at an arm's length, and maybe that's a motivation. I don't know. It's a weird thing that still, even after this, is still like cautious coaching. And so, is this almost one of those things, especially when you hear that Jalen Milroe's response was, "I ain't going anywhere. I came here to play at Alabama. I came here to be the starting quarterback at Alabama, and I'm not going anywhere."
Yeah, I think there is something to that, like some type of crazy reverse psychology or something going on. Everybody talks about Saban and his mind games, and he's always having a plan and a purpose for everything. I just think Jalen Milroe is somebody with supreme confidence, regardless of what may be happening. I think that he just has this like infinite amount of confidence in himself and his ability, and I think that confidence rubs off on his teammates and kind of inspires confidence in them in him. You could see it from pregame throughout the game, just kind of the body language of players throughout the team, not even just on offense, on defense. Everybody just kind of gravitates towards him. They gravitate towards his personality. And I think that there is something to be said about a guy who is perceived to be a guy that you want to kind of take reign of the quarterback competition, and it didn't happen in spring practice, and then bring in another quarterback, and there's this outside perception, and there's all of these opinions, and all he does is organize a workout with his teammates in another state, and just kind of gets away from everything, puts his head down, and improves from that point on. And it culminates in this moment where he has a historic first game. And I think, when all of those things together, he earned the respect of his teammates. He's earned the confidence of his teammates. He obviously has the confidence of Saban to get that start. And, it's all but, guaranteed that he's going to start again on Saturday. And I think that he's obviously created a good amount of separation between himself and Buckner for that number one spot. So, maybe he is somebody who needs motivation. Maybe he's just so intrinsically motivated because of just his belief in himself that he can kind of overcome those circumstances. And I think that's something that you have to respect, whether you're, inside the program or outside of it.
Yeah, he seems to handle it well. As I say, he seems to wear it well. Someone asked me, and I said, well, maybe his parents and him, man, they had a different mindset, and it's paying off. This young man fought through it, and not only did he fight through it, he fought through it to an historic first time. You think about how long Alabama has been playing football. and he did something that's never been done. And when it was his team, last year was Bryce's team. This was his team. You couldn't script it any better. Fumble snap, bad snap, pick it up, uses his legs. And I'm going to come back on this, but somebody needs to talk to me about those touchdown passes, and how pretty. See. I've heard people say, well, it was Middle Tennessee State. When you play a Middle Tennessee State, what you have to do is execute and hit the right guy at the right time, on time, and he did it virtually every time. We're going to talk back about that, but X, you had something for Kennington. Xavier, can't hear you, X. Xavier, we can't hear you. So, yes, at Kennington, when you look at that, to the effect of what's happening with the what I was talking about, it may be Middle Tennessee State, Kennington, but how pretty was each one of those touchdown passes? He starts the game off, first of all, I think 6 for 6 or 7 for 7. And his first 2 incompletes were the right guy. That's what I look at. Okay, he threw it a little short, threw it a little in front, but he had the right receiver. And then his deep balls, man, they were things of beauty. Your response, Kennington?
Yeah, I mean, that's what stuck out to me, his deep ball. And I'm not making the comparison to Tua, but when Tua was starting, it seemed like he would throw passes and the ball would just be hanging in the air. And when they dropped down, it would just be in the perfect spot for a receiver. It's almost like he could kind of like see into the future. It's like a ball is just traveling, and then you have no idea what's happening. And then all of a sudden it just lands in the receiver's hands, and it's perfect. That's exactly what Milroe did. And I liked Tommy Rees's game plan of getting him settled down and establishing some confidence with short to intermediate passes. And then as the game goes on, you see them starting to attack Middle Tennessee State down the field further and further and further. And then once Milroe was settled in, it was it was just kind of bombs away. And he really could have had a 6 touchdown to Isaiah Bond, who got tripped up on a pass interference. He had that guy beat, and one man's opinion, it looked like he would have came down with it. Maybe he gets tackled at the 1 or whatever. But that was another deep ball that was on the money that didn't show up on the stat sheet because of a pass interference. But I thought Milroe was decisive with the ball. Like you said, again, I think you saw him stand in the pocket longer, not bailing out, going through his progressions and throwing with confidence. Anytime that he kind of improvised or escaped the pocket, really except for that first play, it was almost kind of like a last resort. I think last year you saw a quarterback against Texas A&M where that first read wasn't there immediately. In his mind, he was like, okay, I'm just going to take off and run with it. So I saw a more patient Milroe. And, I don't think we've mentioned it yet, or I haven't mentioned it yet at least, but to play without turnovers was pretty remarkable regardless of opponent. And, like you said, people are going to say, well, it's Middle Tennessee State. But on the other side of it, if he would have struggled, then it would have been he struggled against Middle Tennessee State. There's no way he's going to be able to execute against the Texases or the SEC slate. So you can only play who's in front of you. It's your job to execute, and he did that. So that was something that really impressed me, was his deep ball throwing. And, he was asked about that after the game, and he said that he wants to improve in every aspect, but he understands that the deep ball has to be a part of his arsenal if Alabama's going to succeed this year.
Yeah, that makes you think twice about putting 8 in the box. Hey, you listen to the Martin Houston Show powered by MaXSports. We have Kennington Smith on with us at Skinny Kenny on Twitter, at Skinny Kenny on Twitter. And once again, Kennington Smith III of The Athletic. We'll take a break. We'll be back in just a moment to keep the conversation going. If you want to get in on it, put your thoughts, your comments, your questions in on the chat. If you have a question for Kennington or us, you can do it right there. We'll be back in just a moment.
Flex afterward.
being consistent
mechanics
with
of it all.
where his feet are when they're in rhythm. Platform, look at that. Feet were aligned. He was ready, strong base to throw the football, accurate throw. He was taking a huge step this fall camp.
McClellan on the handoff.
He's out of rhythm. Watch this.
Oh, that's the run play. That was good too, though. That was good.
Listen, he's not out there eating Rodney's guys, but out to lunch, yeah, that's how you would describe it.
Third and goal. Bounce to the outside, and McClellan splashes in. Alabama with another third down conversion.
Up front, and just great vision by Jace McClellan. Sticks his head down there, nothing there, keeps his feet alive. That'll be tough to recover from, but he does. Ends up being the bowl MVP that year. So what a great maturation season for his confidence. Got to sit and continue to learn.
Adiato swings it out. And Jaden Cradle is able to pick up a first down.
He said made an impact from day one, and he's going to be the next great on the back end.
60B's out there now, and they get to the quarterback. Quandarius Robinson with the sack. It's a loss of 8.
Packers this time going to see this one shoot the A gap, and Lawson's going to loop around. It's going to confuse the left guard and center. They're trying to pass this off. They run right into each other.
Both of them would have gotten home. Deontay Lawson being the other.
And they come and do something that's not them.
They get pressure on the quarterback, and it's a sack for Jonathan Butler. And that's what Middle does when they're at their best. It's a loss of 10.
Shoots the gap right here. You're going to see J.C. Latham has his eyes outside. Not sure if Darian Dalcourt, no. Slide was going to the left. So that's one where Jalen Milroe, if he can identify that, he's got to slide it the opposite direction.
It was on the road at Miami. A little delayed handoff. And straight ahead, Frank Peasant. We haven't seen...
who didn't block his guy. So I thought they did a good job. And I think that, you know, we're going to have that kind of balance. That's the kind of balance we want to have in the future. So just got to keep on working on it, because I'm sure we're going to play some really good front sevens down the road as well.
That's Coach Nick Saban talking about the offensive line, Kennington. Your overall thoughts on the O-line and their play?
Yeah, I think going into the season, I think the narrative, especially nationally, is that this is going to be an offensive line that kind of sets the pace for the team, and they're just going to kind of line up and just like road grade people to a lot of rushing yards. You know, they're going to lean on their running game, maybe be the best rush offense in the SEC, maybe not statistically, but just kind of execution-wise, and that was going to lead the way. And while we didn't see that in terms of just like raw yardage, like Alabama didn't go out and just like run for 200 and 250 yards behind their backs, I thought situationally they played really well, especially in short yardage. I think that was an area last year that really hurt the offense, was being able to execute in short yardage situations, especially running the ball, getting those third and shorts, getting fourth and shorts. And we saw that play out in pretty dominant fashion on Saturday. I believe there were 5 or 6 short yardage situations, third and ones, third and ones, third and twos, where they were able to kind of convert for a first down. So I thought overall it was a solid game. I think obviously there's going to be areas of improvement, especially for Caden Proctor in his first game at that left tackle spot. But overall, I think that they kept Milroe pretty clean. The 2 sacks that were allowed were really on the pass protection. But it was Jam Miller on one play. Can't remember who it was on the second sack, but really more so the running backs kind of failing in pass coverage more so than the offensive linemen blowing their assignments on those sacks. So thought it was a solid performance, and I'll be really interested to see how they perform against Texas on Saturday.
Yeah, big time by the offensive line. To me, I would have been much more concerned Kennington coming out of this game if we had dominated the run and struggled in the pass game.
Yeah.
And when you look at, like I said, when you play a Middle Tennessee State as coaches, the win is not from Alabama standpoint, it's not assumed, but it is assumed. Let's be real. Alabama has won like 75, I think, straight home games against unranked opponents. You getting close to that. That's a foregone conclusion that you're going to win. So you have these goals that you want to accomplish in these types of games. In Alabama O-line, they wanted to play dominant, clean football. And to me, they were able to do that in a big-time fashion against Middle Tennessee State. No penalties. No. I know. Let me go back and read Kennington's 3. Let me see. Reduced penalties, third down efficiency, physicality. Was that the 3 that you gave me last week, I think, Kennington?
Yeah.
And I think you said limit turnovers. So how did they do in terms of
check? Again, it's kind of one of those things that you kind of asked earlier. It's like, would you have preferred for them to have a perfect game, or do you want them to have some things that they can improve on and know that they have to work on leading into the Texas game? So obviously, they're going to have to run the ball with more consistency against Texas, not just in volume, which they had plenty of that. It was almost a 64-36 split in terms of run-pass ratio on Saturday. So you're seeing that balance in Tommy Rees's offense. And there was at one point where they almost had twice as many runs as passes. And I just kind of thought to myself, when was the last time that's happened? In a game at Alabama where they're doubling up on run pass. So I think that was a pleasant sign that fans see that there's going to be a true commitment to running the ball, and obviously that's going to be a big part of their game plan this weekend against a Texas offense that you're going to want to keep off the field.
Yeah,
Xavier.
I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how they approach this week's game. And
I think we're still having issues with Xavier. So, all right. I'm going to just have him call me directly. But Kennington, as we work through this, you look at the play calling, you referenced that. How big a deal was the play calling?
Yeah, I thought it was big. Like I said, the goal for Tommy Rees, and this is something that when I've talked to a lot of people about Tommy Rees as a coach and as a play caller, the number one thing that they point to, this is coaches who have coached him, coached with him, against him, players who have played for him, is that he's going to build an offense that fits the personnel. It's going to fit the offense that fits the players' strengths. And we talked about this last week of what would it look like if an offensive coordinator devoted a game plan to Jalen Milroe's strengths. How would that come to fruition, and how would that give him confidence? That's exactly what he did. He kind of come out, established the run early, got Milroe comfortable, and then you could just see like there was a rhythm to the plays that he was calling and things setting up other plays. There was a lot of motion early on. There was a lot, especially by the tight ends, a lot of ball fakes and those things, RPO action that set up. Some really successful plays. I think the touchdown at Nye Black is one that kind of comes to mind there, where they were able to find a tell in the defense based off of some things they were doing earlier, and that opened up a touchdown. But I thought that the play calling was well. I think the 2 tight end sets is something that the fans are definitely going to need to get used to this year. That's a position of strength. I don't know if necessarily people thought of it that way after spring practice, but the way that group has developed, they have 4 legitimate playable tight ends. They're going to use them all. So I think that's an element both in the run game and the pass game that are going to open some things up. So I thought it was a solid debut for Tommy Rees, starting off, and this was a big game for him as well to kind of show glimpses of what his spin on Alabama's offense is going to look like. So I was impressed with the game plan that he put together and play calling. And, I'm sure that, again, there's going to be a heavy commitment to the run this Saturday and using those things to play off of that. And last point about Tommy Rees, the biggest thing that stuck out to me when watching the game live and going back and rewatching it is one thing that you really want when you have an inexperienced quarterback is to get ahead of the chains early. And Alabama did not have a single negative play on first down when Milroe was in the game. It's huge. That's a huge component. That's a huge component of it. In fact, they averaged 8.5 yards per play on first down. So you stay on script, you stay ahead of the chains, get the quarterback comfortable, and Alabama was able to do that at a really high clip last Saturday.
Yeah, and it keeps your whole entire playbook open.
Right.
You don't have to worry about doing something that you don't want to do early. Alabama dictated the pace of the game. You mentioned the tight ends. I'm going to play this tight end audio as we go to break, and then get your thoughts. You hit them a little bit, but could this group potentially be a game changer for Alabama? We'll listen to this audio. We'll respond on the other side. As a matter of fact, since we're doing this, we'll go ahead. Let's go ahead and get the break, and then we'll come back and we'll play it coming out of the break. Kennington, we'll listen to that Alabama versus Alabama and Middle Tennessee State. Nick Saban talking about that tight end room that you said they kind of got everybody in the mix on. He kind of concurred with that. But I want to know, can this room potentially, by the end of the season, be the skill position that has the biggest impact on Alabama football and Jalen Milroe's season? We'll come back on the other side, keep the conversation going right here on the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier. We got Kennington Smith of The Athletic joining us now.
They'll set up 3rd and 2. And it never had it. And
This is Sadie. She's on Verizon, and she's got the new My Plan, so she gets exactly what she wants and only pays for what she needs. She picks her perks and saves on every one. Make your move to My Plan. Act now and get it for $25 when you bring your phones. It's your Verizon.
what could have been a momentum drive for Rick Stockstill's team comes up empty.
Been very accurate, very efficient. Haven't seen that explosive play downfield yet.
Issue with the snap, and then he whips it to the perimeter. And Kobe Prentice. That'll leave 3rd and 1.
Out of his hands, an out route. So it's a timing route from Jalen Milroe. His feet have been perfect. Taking that next step yet, but
pressure coming, and Milroe can't escape. Brought 2 extras, and Parker Hughes comes up with the sack. And a loss of 6.
You know you have enough bodies. It's 6 on 6, but that urgency, that clock is got to be ticking a little bit faster. Had a slant route to Jermaine Burton. Could have got rid of the ball there.
1st and 10. Hit as he throws. And intercepted! Jalen Key with the pick for Alabama.
And concepts in, as well as mix some stuff in for Jalen Milroe.
And here's some of that. Milroe takes off, and he's in for his 2nd rushing touchdown of the night. 13-yard run, and Amari Niblack, the tight end, made it possible.
Recruiting cycle.
All right, Amari Niblack, tight end, makes it possible. Let's see what else Nick Saban had to say about that tight end room.
I think we have better tight ends on our team than we've had in the past. CJ gives us something we haven't had, which is a good, strong, solid blocker at Y. Amari is a really good pass receiver, made a really nice catch down the middle today. He's improved his blocking. Danny is a good blocker and a good Y. Robbie Utes is kind of a H-back, old-fashioned fullback type of guy that can do certain things really well. So that group is, I think, much better than we've had in the last couple of years. I mean, we've had to play an offensive tackle at tight end to be able to do some of the things that we're doing now. So I'm pleased with the progress that group has made, and hopefully that'll help us in the future. It's hard to run the ball in the perimeter when you don't have guys that can block at tight end, and we've got power at tackle. So hopefully we can continue to improve on how effectively we can run the ball as well because of those two things, including the tight ends.
That's Coach Nick Saban talking about the tight end room. I'm going to get your thoughts really quick on Texas, but before we do that, just talk about this tight end room, and could it have gone as much as it went well for the quarterback position? Could it have gone any better for the tight end room as a whole in what they were able to do in this game?
Yeah, I don't think that there could have been a better debut, short of probably another tight end scoring a touchdown alongside Niblack. But you look at the rotation, and all four guys played significant snaps early on in the game. It seemed like maybe on that first drive, they almost went exclusively two tight end sets down the field, and the versatility in how they were used. You saw Lewis and Niblack, and then you saw Dupree and Oots, and then you would see Dupree and Niblack, and then you would see Oots and Lewis. It was just like so many different variations that they were putting into the game, and it just opens up a lot of flexibility and opens up a lot of options in the offense. And I think the depth in the tight room has helped somebody like Amari Niblack get onto the field as somebody who is a tight end but is perceived as more of a pass catching guy, and we know that his blocking could use some work, but to be able to pair him with a more physical tight end on the field allows for him to get some more snaps and to be a weapon, in the pass game. So that's a group that has just like ascended so much since the end of spring practice. I think Niblack specifically, it's hard to think of a player that's ascended more individually than him as somebody who's going to be a real part of this offense. He led that tight end group in snaps on Saturday. So I don't know how many people would have, had that on their bingo card at the end of spring practice. But I'm excited for this tight end group. I think, you look at what Reese did with, Michael Mayer and others at Notre Dame, and you figured that would be a wrinkle that he will put into this offense, but I don't think that people expected it to play out in terms of just sheer volume of two tight end sets the way that it did. And I think that, to your point, that the question that you posed, can this group be impactful for the skill positions? I think it can. When I did my season position group predictions, I predicted that there wouldn't be a 1,000-yard receiver. And a reason why is because I thought that the tight end room was going to be so much a part of the offense, more than it has been in years past, that's going to cut into the receivers' production, because they're going to be seen as a group that can, pass catch as well. So, excited to see the tight end group. Maybe they don't go two tight end sets every single week. It's going to depend on the matchups. Maybe all four don't play every single week. But to know that you have those options is really reassuring if you're Tommy Reese.
Speaking with Kennington Smith, the third of The Athletic, at Skinny Kenny on Twitter. Great follow. Beat writer for the University of Alabama. That'll have some great stuff. He'll tell you about it at the end of what he has coming up this week. Speaking of the wide receiver group, give us your thoughts on them real quick.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is no drops. That's my main takeaway. There were 0 drops. I think that it's a group that's still a work in progress, still kind of coming together. I think you could see that there is obvious chemistry between Isaiah Bond and Jalen Milroe. I think that was apparent that they kind of have that connection. I thought Jermaine Burton played well. And Milroe missed Burton on what could have been, a long touchdown. So Burton could have ended up with 2 scores. I thought he played well. It's notable that Ja'Cory Brooks was held out for the first half. And, Saban didn't exactly go into why, but I think that you can, people are going to speculate. I think you can assume that it was disciplinary because he, came in the second half and played fine. It clearly wasn't a health thing. So that's going to be something to monitor. But I thought the receiver room played well. I think you saw Bond kind of take that next step as a second-year player, and kind of hoping for the Kobe Princesses to continue to develop. Malik Benson didn't get a heavy workload, but you expect him to continue to work and improve. And then Brooks didn't flash much last Saturday, but he's an option as well. So still a work in progress, but it was a solid performance by that group.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting. The quarterback, people may have missed it, but when Brooks did come in, Milroe intentionally, in my opinion, tried to get him involved.
Yeah.
He probably targeted him a couple times when he wasn't necessarily the best option, but that gets a guy back involved. And in that type of game, I can appreciate that from a quarterback and a leadership standpoint, because down the road they're going to need Ja'Cory Brooks. If he's a positive influence, they're going to need him as a part of what this team wants to do. So I thought that was a great move by Milroe. And I do have to say, you mentioned it earlier, but I want to concur on it. Play calling, I thought he did a great job. We had speed sweep, we had a toss sweep, we had a bubble screen. I mean, all of the things that we had said, hey, maybe he needs to do some of this stuff that we used to see when Kiffin was here. He did it all. And all that's going to do is make teams have to play this Alabama offense from sideline to sideline versus just the pass game or just running in the box. Alabama had more creative runs. Your thoughts on that, and then we'll flip over to Texas.
Yeah, we saw not only a commitment to the run, but diversity in the run game was huge. So you saw a little bit of creativity from Tommy Rees, and I know that was kind of something when he got hired at Alabama. It was the common thing that you thought was this is a clash of styles. What Rees did at Notre Dame and how they played, contrasts with what we've seen from Alabama over the last several years. But I think in some ways, ironically, it looks like a pretty good pairing of what Alabama's done foundationally and the kind of wrinkles that Rees is putting into it. But I believe Saban said that late last week, that the way that they're going to be able to run the ball, the multiple looks that they're going to be able to present, and the improvement that they've made in the run game since Rees became offensive coordinator was really notable to him. So, like I said, it's one of those things where I think we expected Alabama to kind of look like, some throwback type of teams, and we got a small glimpse of that against Middle Tennessee State.
Absolutely. Fast forward to Texas. TNT is what I'm calling it. Tied in Texas. Bama, Texas 2.0 this Saturday. Your overall thoughts on this game?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Texas tries to establish the run without Bijan Robinson. And I think if you go back and look at that game, a few things that stick out when Texas was successful on offense. Motion was one of the big ones, being able to kind of undress Alabama's defense a little bit pre-snap. So being able to kind of combat that, I think, is going to be huge. But they had to account for Bijan Robinson, so much on every play that it allowed for Texas to kind of open things up with RPOs and play actions and those things. Now that he's not in that backfield, how is Texas going to adjust to that? I think it's going to be one of those games where Quinn Ewers is going to have to make almost every throw for Texas to stay into the game. That's going to be a really big matchup with Alabama's secondary, and the health and the status of Malachi Moore and Jalen Key becomes really, really big when you look at that matchup. So that's how I look at it from the defensive side. Offensively, if I was Tommy Rees, I would run the ball and take the air out of the game. I mean, I would limit the possessions with Texas's offense. You know how dangerous they are, so I would run the ball, control the clock, take my shots in the passing game when they're available. But I would try to keep Quinn Ewers and that Texas offense off the field as much as possible.
Speaking with @SkinnyKenny on Twitter, @SkinnyKenny_ on Twitter. and Kennington Smith, the third of the Athletic. Kennington, when you look at this defense played so well, I think we've just kind of forgot to ask about him. Nobody asked about him in the press conference. We haven't talked about him on here. I said last week that Saban's comments about Deontay Lawson taking the bull by the horns and accepting with excitement the responsibility of being a play caller and getting everybody set was the most important thing that's happened in the entire offseason, because he kind of sets the tempo, the quarterback of that defense. And man, they were lined up, they were ready to play. Even though MTSU goes fast, they were in the right place. You look at that, and then you look at the fact that Kevin Steele seemed to have used a lot of different defensive schemes, because our sacks came from our linebackers, middle linebackers, inside linebackers, versus Turner and Braswell, as Quindarius Robinson got a sack, but he was at middle linebacker when he got that. And I thought Deontay Lawson was the MVP of the game, when you really look at how well he played and led that defense.
Yeah, he was really good last Saturday, and the aggression that he played with, the confidence, the speed, those were like the three takeaways that I had from Alabama's linebackers, and their just defense overall: speed, confidence, aggression. And I think that's what fans wanted to see, moving from Pete Golden to Kevin Steele, was just a defense that just kind of pinned their ears back and just kind of, went after it. And that outside linebacker trio of Turner, Braswell, and Robinson is going to cause offenses so many problems, this year, when that look of those three on the field, and the one defensive lineman that has contained on the other side, and the secondary, I don't know if they were in nickel or dime, but that's a package that I was excited to see on third down, and I'm going to be looking forward to that when they play Texas. But I thought Lawson was great. He got the defense lined up. You didn't see undisciplined play. You didn't see guys out of position. You didn't see a lot of missed tackles. You didn't see penalties. And like you said, he showed some pass rush ability as well. And he was impactful on a few blitzes. So that was kind of a coming out party a bit for Lawson. I think within the Alabama circles, people knew who he was, but because he was injured for spring practice, he didn't really get to have an opportunity to kind of have like that press run and kind of get that media hype. So we came into this year a little bit underrated, but he, by all accountability wise, is an all SEC linebacker. And, he's primed for a really big year in the middle of that defense.
Yeah, he did not disappoint. So with going into the Texas game, last year we had some missed coverages, busted coverages, and it looked like Texas was the aggressor on offense versus our defense. And Sark said last year before the game, I know what they like to do. How big of an advantage does Alabama have now that they only have Kevin Steele with this new lineup? Does Alabama have the advantage defensively over Texas's offense?
Yeah, potentially that they're going to do some things. And I think it goes to the other side of the ball as well. Like, they really don't know what type of offense Alabama is going to roll with either, because what Reese put on film, especially, again, going back to the 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets, that's just something that's just completely different than what Alabama's done in years past. So I think it kind of goes both ways. Like, there was offensively and defensively. There were questions about Saban replacing 2 coordinators and a quarterback in the same season, and those were probably the 3 most impressive performances from the Middle Tennessee State game. Like Jalen Milroe's ability to pop out, and Tommy Reese's game plan, and what Kevin Steele was able to do on defense with limiting big plays and the missed tackles and the penalties, and all of a sudden those 3 entities seem like strengths going into the Texas game. So glad we were able to kind of get like that first game, so we can actually have something like tangible to talk about, and how it's going to apply to Texas on Saturday. But I think it's just going to be an electric game, and one that's going to have the nation's attention, obviously.
Yeah, being that we're on live stream, I can ask you one extra question, because I don't have a producer telling me I have to get off air since it's my airtime. Kennington, with that said, man, talking about new additions, it is really, really amazing that the three guys that you mentioned, the three question marks, all answered in week one. I mean, to some degree, of course, we still got a long season, but you can't ask for a better start. With that said, talking about a new guy, we're going to talk a little bit really quick about college and the SEC if you want to having the new guy in town, the new sheriff in town wearing his big cowboy hat, Deion Sanders. I have to get you on record for what was your thoughts as you watched that game play out?
Yeah, that was unbelievable. And I don't think it's like crazy to say that I don't think he's getting enough credit, or Colorado's getting enough credit, because they're obviously the biggest story and they're in the flow of the news. But that was legitimately one of the biggest upsets in recent history. Like, no exaggeration. We're talking about the worst team in college football last year. It was not debatable. Gets a coach who's never coached in Power 5, and he goes and gets a completely new team, and they are playing the national championship runner-ups in their home stadium, and they're 3 touchdown underdogs, and they go in there and win the game. And it wasn't like they were down 14 and just had this miraculous comeback. I mean, they came out, struck early, struck often, battled adversity, and came out with the win. It was really impressive. My two thoughts were, one, coaches around the country and athletic departments around the country that watched Deion flip a roster and then beat the national championship runner-up in his first game, probably looking at their coaches who might be in year 2, 3, 4 and haven't gotten that signature win yet, and thinking to themselves, okay, it's obviously possible for Deion. He's a one of one. He's his own entity, but it's proven that, you can have a guy come in, flip a roster, galvanize a group, and have that immediate success. I think that's kind of where college football is trending right now in this era of the transfer portal, that these rebuilds are going to take a lot faster than they have in years past. That was my first takeaway. My second one is this is going to play really well on the recruiting trail. And Deion's been able to recruit defensive backs at a high clip, got Travis Hunter, got Cormani McLean, but that's his native position. If he wants to have a roster that's going to be viable everywhere else, and especially in the trenches where they're going to need a lot of depth, recruits needed to see that this is a viable product on the field. And I think even competing against TCU would have been a win in itself. But the fact that they went out and won, every coach around the country, grab your commits and hold them close, because they're coming. And now that they have proven it on the field to some degree, like you said, it's only the first game, but if they can continue this the rest of the season and be viable, they're going to flip some kids at the end of this recruiting cycle, and Deion's going to have that thing rolling.
Yeah, you look at it, Trey Sanders from Alabama getting a couple touchdowns, so it wasn't just all about Shadir. It was running game, 4 receivers getting 100 yards, DB shutting down. I mean, it was everything that he could have prescribed. Now, the big question, the top 4 teams, Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and Alabama, 3 of the 4 having questions at quarterback. Which team ended up answering the question the best? Because Alabama never named a starter. Ohio State named one late, and Georgia named back early. Of those 3 guys, those 3 teams, did Milroe clearly win the weekend? And what's your thoughts on those other 2 teams in their quarterback play?
Yeah, I think that he did. That's the ironic part about it, right? It's like the other 2 teams didn't take a quarterback out of the portal, and it was seen as a sign of strength in their rooms that they didn't feel the need to go out and pull somebody else in. Yet Milroe shined the brightest amongst the new quarterbacks that debuted. So I think that he had the best debut. I think Carson Beck was second. I think Georgia, we've talked a lot about Mike Bobo, that, and kind of the impact of losing Todd Monken, who, in my opinion, was the best Kirby Smart assistant today, definitely the most impactful one today. Yep. It's not. I don't think it's comparable. The way that he called that offense, it just kind of lacked rhythm. I don't know if you got a chance to watch the Georgia UT Martin game, but it didn't seem like there was a consistent rhythm in how he was calling plays. It was kind of like picking random
Reminded me of
plays.
last year. Reminded me of Alabama last year.
Yeah, just picking plays on a play
More
sheet.
talent than
Just
more talent than most people.
right.
But no, I told someone, not talking about Georgia, but to your point, Kennington, is I was like, I never felt like we were setting anything up.
Right.
I never felt like we were going anywhere. It was just like, okay, let's run this play.
Let's run this play. Right.
Let's run this play.
Right.
It was never like, okay, hey, this is what they're doing against this, so let's run this so that the next in a couple plays we can come back and either play action off of it or run a slant and go off of it. It never seemed like we were building anything last year. We just had a Heisman Trophy quarterback, and it looks like Georgia. I didn't get to see all of the game, but I did watch a little bit of it early and listen to it early and then watch some of it early. And it just seemed like they never had any type of rhythm or never established an identity of what they wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, it was like we're calling a play on sheet 1, and they were going to sheet 6, and they were going to 4, and then 8, and then back to 2. It was just kind of like this play. And then another thing with Georgia, when you have a first-year quarterback, to my point about Milroe earlier in establishing the run, for Georgia to have perceptionally one of, if not the best offensive line in the country, did not see that on Saturday. And that was a huge reason why they were not able to get into the offense that they wanted to, because they were just not establishing that kind of physicality on the ground. So kind of a wait and see approach with Georgia. They have an easier schedule than the other contenders. So they do have a few weeks to kind of work out those kinks, but they were not a well-oiled machine offensively. Either defense was lights out, but I think that was to be expected. I think Ohio State's the one that probably has the muddiest quarterback situation of all. I thought it was very surprising that Kyle McCord and Marvin Harrison Jr., high school teammates, were not really on the same accord throughout that Indiana game. I think he only had 2 catches for 18 yards, something like that. He was targeted several times. But that wasn't what I think Ohio State fans wanted to see, obviously. They had the toughest opponent. They started off with a conference opponent on the road, so they do get a slight mulligan for that. But I think that they probably have the biggest question mark of the pack. And it's kind of par for the course, though. I think you usually see Ohio State quarterbacks kind of struggle in their first start. So I won't hit the panic button yet. But if we're ranking, goes Alabama, Georgia, then Ohio State.
Does Alabama move up this week?
Who's
in front of Ohio State?
I don't think so. But I think a win over Texas, you would have to put them up. I think Florida State's probably going to make the biggest move. They had
wow.
It was definitively the best week 1 performance and the biggest statement made. So I mean, I saw fans on Twitter saying that Florida State deserves to be number 1. Like, they scheduled the toughest opponent and they dominated them. They deserve to be 1. I don't have a problem with that ideology. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think they're probably going to make the biggest move, if any. But if Bama beats Texas, they're definitely going to move up at least 1 spot for sure.
Put it like this: if they didn't pre-rank teams, Florida State would be number 1 today.
Yeah.
If you looked at the first couple of weeks of the season and this was the first poll, Florida State clearly made adjustments at halftime and just dominated. And I'm going to say this: I think we may have gotten too hype on Kelly. I don't think he's going to have the same thing that happened last year. Everybody talks about how Jaden Daniels figured it out against Alabama. They scored 30 points in an overtime game. It wasn't like there was this big offensive explosion. And so the question was about this LSU team was defensive backs. And Florida State and Coleman from Michigan State and Webb, those dudes. And to your point earlier, these coaches that haven't embraced the transfer portal better watch Colorado, Florida State, and you have to throw Texas State in there as well. Texas State had 73 new players and beat Baylor. And and of course, a former LSU and Auburn Tiger quarterback with almost 300 passing yards. So but I'll let you go after this. What's your overall thoughts of the college football season, the craziness of the conference realignment, the craziness of, are we going to swing back to, it's a lot going on. Are we swinging back to more physical football? Are we still going to see teams try to run it or whatever? But the dominance of the dual threat quarterback this weekend was probably one of my biggest takeaways of the season. When you start looking at who's the top players, they are dual threat guys who are equally as talented. The dual threat guys, I mean, say it this way, Kennington, I'll let you respond. The dual threat guys used to be guys who their biggest threat coming into the game was that you had to stop them from getting 3 rushing touchdowns. Now you have guys who will get 350 passing and another 100 plus rushing and have 3 and 2, 2 and 3. And so the dual threat quarterback isn't what it used to be. Now these guys are legit passers with unbelievable arm and leg talent.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of crazy to see this shift in the quarterback position, because when I was growing up, I grew up in the era of pocket passers, Brady, Manning, Roethlisberger, Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, Matt Stafford. It was, a quarterback's got to be able to stand in the pocket and deliver, and rushing quarterbacks were almost like gimmicks kind of in like the 2000s and the early 2010s. And nowadays, if you can't move, you almost can't play quarterback. Like
right.
if you not everybody can be Jalen Milroe, but if you can't extend plays with your legs in any capacity, it's almost a non-starter. You have to have an elite offensive line if you're going to have a quarterback play that way. So it's just kind of really interesting to see how offenses and philosophies have shifted. And I think the difference in having one versus not is apparent. And I think Florida is probably the most glaring example of that in what they were able to do last year, rushing the ball with Anthony Richardson at quarterback. You put Graham Mertz in there, and all of a sudden it was a lot harder to run the ball against Utah because he's just not the same type of running threat. So it's almost becoming a prerequisite to have that at the quarterback position. And, poor defenses, I mean, like, it's just continuously getting harder and harder for them to defend these offenses.
Yeah, what a great weekend. I'll let you have closing thoughts and tell our listeners what you got coming up.
Yeah, just stay locked into The Athletic. Is going to be a really interesting week. We do get Ja'Cory Brooks today at the podium, which is interesting, following him being held out for the first half. So, that'll be interesting. I think I'm going to be leaning into some player features this week and kind of, detailing a couple guys who made an impact. So, stay tuned to The Athletic. And then once we get a few games under us, I'm going to be doing a lot more analysis pieces on the coordinators, specific position groups, and those things. So going to be a really exciting year, and I'm excited that it's finally here.
I know you probably put out a prediction somewhere else, so I won't ask you your score, but you leaning Tide or Texas?
Yeah, I'm leaning Alabama. What Milroe was able to do inspired a lot of confidence. I think that they're the more balanced offense than Texas. I think that's probably what's going to ultimately play out in this game, is that they're going to have a lot more balance. I think they're going to be able to limit Texas possessions. And what I saw from the secondary and their cohesiveness gave me a lot of confidence as well. So Malachi Moore and Jalen Keith's health is a big contingency on this prediction. Because things will change if those two cannot play. But the questions that I have for Alabama, I think that they answered them. I don't think Texas's offense was as buttoned up as I would have expected. So those things together in Alabama's home field advantage, I think I'm going to take them in a pretty hard-fought game.
Yes, and I agree with you on them, especially Malachi Key getting a big interception. But Malachi made me feel good when he was walking down the tunnel that he was having conversation, stopping and turning on that ankle and all of that, and didn't have an apparent limp. Of course, swelling and all that stuff can happen later, but I think that was hey, let's go ahead and get a head start on the treatment. This game's locked up type of scenario. But as you said, Kennington, that will definitely be huge. Once again, tell them where they can find you, sir.
Find me on Twitter at SkinnyKenny_. theathletic.com. Search my name, Kennington Smith the third, and connect with me. Let's talk some ball. Let's have a fun season.
Hey, and listen, guys, this is the only place on Tide that you're getting to hear. You heard Kennington Smith the third, Martin Houston, and David Houston earlier. Hey, everybody else stayed in the bed. We got up because we love you. We love Bama, and we wanted to break down this game. We'll have Kennington back with us next week after Alabama's big win over Texas. Hey, listen to me, follow at Skinny Kenny _ on Twitter. You can get all of the great content. He's going to have some great stuff coming from Ja'Cory Brooks today and from Coach Saban's presser. And go to the Athletic and look up Kennington Smith the third, and you'll be right in the know in what's happening on the Bama beat. Thanks, Kennington. We'll catch up with you, man.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you having me on.
All right, roll Tide. All right. Hey, guys, thanks so much for being a part of the show. I'm going to come back and do a wrap-up. So thanks for hanging in there with me. I'm going to take a quick break so I can catch my breath. Hey, listen, when I don't have to get off the air because of the other show, I'm going to go just a few more minutes here, wrap things up at 7:30. So stay tuned. I'll be back and give you my thoughts on the game right here on the Martin Houston Show, powered by MaXSports.
Now all of a sudden the physicality, you can push around a defense like that. And that's how Alabama's built.
Deontay Lawson with the sack. It's a loss of 12.
Straight off the edge, again, unblocked. That's one of those that Vadiato has got to see pre-snap and protect himself or get rid of the ball quickly.
In the same game 2 years ago, Bryce against Tennessee. Milroe has all day. Now he's going to unload deep. Got a man! Touchdown! Isaiah Bond in Alabama.
About this play, Isaiah Bond's going to attack and go deep, and Jalen Milroe has to worry about that safety. As soon as he gets the snap, he checks the safety to make sure he stays low. Looks left, stays low, gets his eyes on Isaiah Bond. This is what I love. He doesn't throw it on a line. He throws it across the field. Allow your fast receiver to run away from the... And he rebounded, right? Halfway through that second quarter, like, man, they got to get something going. Big run by him, big throw by him, got this offense back on track.
And even those that aren't designed can be dangerous. Middle brought pressure. Milroe trying to get out of it. And he's able to scramble forward for a gain of 4. Jonathan Butler with the tackle. That's Alabama quarterback with 2 rushing touchdowns in the same game 2 years ago. Bryce against Tennessee. Milroe has all day. Now he's going to unload deep. Got a man! Touchdown! Isaiah Bond in Alabama.
About this play, Isaiah Bond's going to attack and go deep, and Jalen Milroe has to worry about that safety. As soon as he gets the snap, he checks the safety to make sure he stays low. Looks left, stays low, gets his eyes on Isaiah Bond. This is what I love. He doesn't throw it on a line. He throws it across the field. Allow your fast receiver to run away from the defender. At times, Milroe, because his arm is so strong, he has a tendency to put it on a line and throw it at guys instead of putting air under it.
All right, we're back from break. We wrap up this final quarter of the Martin Houston Show. A little overtime today. We love it. Love doing this. Love for you guys that are part of it. For those of you who may be new to the Martin Houston Show, powered by MaXSports, we do this every day on the live stream and then play it back. But today, a special edition. Because the station itself was closed, but I felt it important to be here to let you have a place to talk and hear what's happening in Alabama football. Let's see if we can hear from Coach Saban here, doing both hosting and producing here. So we'll see what Coach Saban had to say about this particular team.
No, I was pleased with that. I certainly, that's what we've asked them to do, and I think they competed well in the game. I think they played hard in the game. I think they were trying to be physical. They play with really good toughness. And, their team plays hard and their team plays with toughness. So I think we certainly matched that. And I think that was something that was a real positive for us.
All right, that's Coach Nick Saban talking about the Alabama defense. Not a lot of questions about this defense coming after the game, the press conference. And so to me, I think the defense played so well, we kind of overlooked how well they played. I said last week that Deontay Lawson, in his maturation as the play caller, was probably the most important thing that happened this offseason, because we've seen guys like Dylan Moses and others, even Toa Toa, when they were the play callers, they struggled to be as aggressive in their play. They would lose a little bit. Maybe it was because they were mentally thinking versus just playing. But I know it was Middle Tennessee State from a talent standpoint. But when you look at what happened with the getting guys set, it doesn't matter who you're going against. The speed of getting things set was so important because you could adjust to their motion. Last year, in years past, Alabama struggled to get set. And so when they would finally get set and the team moved, they didn't have enough time to recognize the formation, the initial formation, much less what the motion was doing to them. And I think that'll be huge, because motion, alignment and motion is what got Alabama in the Tennessee game and in the Texas game, having guys run wide open. The defensive backfield played huge. Terrion Arnold made a couple big plays. Kool-Aid made a couple big plays. Have to love Caleb Downs getting involved early. So there's a lot to talk about when we have passing situations and we go with the one lineman and two outside linebacker type small lineup. We have to make sure that we don't get gashed on the run play, but getting to the quarterback, I think, in obvious passing situations when Steele used that formation was really good on Saturday. We'll see how it works out this Saturday against Texas. I call it the TNT matchup, Tide and Texas 2.0 this Saturday. What's going to happen, we will see. But let me go back through just a couple of things. We'll have DC Capstone Report joining us on tomorrow. We'll get his good, bad, and ugly. I didn't really ask what's the name for his good, bad, and ugly, but the obvious good. Oh my goodness. Overall, this team was dominant in a game against an opponent they were supposed to be dominant against. So you have to give them credit where credit is due. Don't say, well, it was just Middle Tennessee. That's who they had to play, and they did everything they were supposed to do. 56 points. Defense limited it to 7, and that was against the backups. Played well on third down, both offensively and defensively. But Jalen Milroe came out and played really well. Let me see what Ryan Fowler had to say. As Milroe said during the postgame ability, they need to continue to improve and correct some mistakes. He missed on some throws, but that should improve. I would grade him at a solid B+. I don't know what Ryan was expecting. If that's a B+, I'd say you had to give a kid an A-, especially considering all of the negativity he had to do. Now, that was an A- against a C+ opponent, and so I understand that he will have to get better, but that is a performance. If you take and look at a couple of things, like I said, even when he missed passes, some of those passes were to the right person, and I think 2 of his completions, one was low, one was out in front. Then he had 2 where I think he was trying to get Ja'Cory Brooks into the flow versus just playing normal. And so 4 of his passes right there off the bat. I do think that he was wanting to prove that he was not going to just take off and run. So I think that probably led to a sack or one of the sacks, because he tried to stick in there. But it also later paid dividends on the deep ball pass to Isaiah Bonds. And then you take the Isaiah Bond pass where he threw it and the pass interference, that was another touchdown pass that would have hit the receivers in stride. And that's what you have to look at. When he played, when he was doing well, it was in stride. I mean, the receivers were not having to break off their routes. They weren't having to slow down. They were catching it in stride. And that will be important for next week, this week, I should say, against Texas. The bad, for me, I guess, the rush game in some capacity, I expected more production out of the running game. Did not see that. And so, but, it wasn't really a lot of bad in this game. So if I'm going to pick something, I would say it was the overall running game against Middle Tennessee. But I think some of that came from the fact that you had several long touchdowns. So you didn't get a chance to drive the ball on those. And we scored 6 of 8 possessions, I think, with Milroe in there. So, or something like that. So it's kind of a misnomer on exactly. But what I did like, and back to the good, was I love the fact that we were effective on short yardage. We were able to get those 3rd and 1s and keep the ball moving. And so I will say one of the bads was pass protection by the running backs. They're going to have to step up and pick up the blitz. One of the sacks in this game was that everybody said that that he caused a problem with Latham, and I don't know how they block it. Maybe they have big on big, and the running back is supposed to step up and pick up the linebacker. And maybe this is the play that Saban's talking about that he should have checked out of. But anyway, Latham steps out, takes the defensive end. Running back, I think it was Jam Miller, steps up. He makes the contact with the guy, but he doesn't stop him. And that was one of the sacks. So I would say if I'm Texas, I'm looking at that, and I'm probably going to throw more pass protection of blitzes at them. But Middle Tennessee State was known as a blitzing kind of chaos, create teams, big plays, both positive and negative based on the way they play. And then ugly wasn't really anything from that game to me that was ugly. I would put it here. I hate the targeting penalty. I absolutely hate the targeting penalty. Can I say that one more time? That kid was coming down, and listen, Middle Tennessee State was our opponent. He didn't aim for Kool-Aid McKinstry's head. He would have hit him right in the numbers if Kool-Aid McKinstry doesn't shrink down to protect himself. The reason it was a crown hit was because the kid was aiming. He would have hit Kool-Aid McKinstry with his face mask. His face mask would have hit the young man's, would have hit Kool-Aid McKinstry's breastplate. But when Kool-Aid bends down, it makes Kool-Aid McKinstry's helmet come down in line with the crown of that young man's helmet. And even if you call that targeting, let's say that's targeting, why is that a throw out of the game penalty? Why should that man, the guy who horse collared Jalen Milroe came a lot closer to injuring Jalen Milroe and snapping his leg or tearing an ACL or causing a concussion than the other. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. Did I say I hate the targeting penalty? I think it's an overreaction to the stupidity and the it's a PC move that they have yet to correct. They need to go back, fine, call the penalty just like you do clipping, just like you do chop blocking, which is more dangerous to a player's knees than and more likely to end a guy's career than the targeting that they called. Okay? It's an overreaction, and it's still an overreaction. Still an overreaction. And I hate to see a young man's game go down, especially when he has a launching point, he aims at it and the defender moves. How could he have adjusted? He couldn't. Anyway, coming back on tomorrow, we'll be back here on the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by MaXSports. We'll add DC Capstone Report to the conversation. Thank all of you, the callers, listeners, viewers, and chatters for being a part of the program. This has been the Martin Houston Show, brought to you by all of my great sponsors, Alabama One, Billy's Cooking Restaurant, Harvest Church, Loving God, Loving People, Taco Casa, and the likes. Man, I'm telling you, if you want to get in on that lineup, then shoot me an email, martin@martinhouston.org. It's been fun. It's been real. And we'll be back on tomorrow for more conversation. Make sure you make plans to join us. Hey, tell everybody about what's happening right here on this live stream, the Martin Houston Show, powered by MaXSports, on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, at Martin Houston 35, at Martin Houston 35 on YouTube and Twitter, the Martin Houston 35 and Martin Houston 35 fan page on Facebook, and last but not least, MaXSports on Facebook. Hey, this is the fastest hour in sports radio, the Sound of Bama Sports, your show, your team, with an extra 30 minutes of overtime today on this Labor Day. Hey, guys, enjoy yourself. Have a great time. And as we go off the air, I want to leave you with just a little bit of what Alabama was able to do against Middle Tennessee. Give me a moment and I'll have that taken care of right here as Alabama gets ready to take down Texas. We will be back on tomorrow to keep the conversation going. And all you need to
now for Jalen
is
pressure coming again.
Tune in.
Milroe goes to the out route. That's caught for a first down by Bond. And the Alabama drive stays alive. A little extra at the end from Bond.
Want to see out of Jalen Milroe. Love the footwork. 3 steps, 1 hitch. The ball comes out on time.
And on 2nd and 6, they'll do it again behind a huge offensive line and a hole made to the outside by McClellan, who finally gets wrestled out after a pickup of 20 by Trey Fluellen.
Multiple tight end sets. Watch these tight ends. 12 personnel here, blocking up, getting a body on a linebacker. Kendrick Law also coming across with a great block.
A set of downs again for Alabama. Bad snap. Milroe scoops it up. And he's trying to make something out of nothing.
All right, guys, remember this. Trust in the Lord always. Lean not your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. Roll Tide out there, everybody. Have a blessed, prosperous, and successful day. We'll catch you on tomorrow.
Last quarterback I saw do things like that going into that end zone. They made a Nets documentary out of him.